Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. My guest today is returning guest, Karlis Jaunpetrovičs, and he's from flyingkarlis.com. He's an instructor, former BGD test pilot, and I've been wanting to do an Ask Me Anything show for a long time. Usually those were with me, but we had a whole bunch of questions that came in that I thought I need to go to a pro on this. So I really enjoyed the talk I had with Karlis, and so did many of you. Got a lot of feedback on that show we did with him a while back. So I asked him to answer all these questions, and we cover a lot. I could grab my notes here, but stepping up and down in glider class. Usually we just talk about advice for stepping up in gliders, but sometimes you definitely want to be stepping the other way. Talk a lot about harnesses, pod and open, and reserve placements, and comfort, and lightweight equipment versus heavier equipment, and comp equipment, and fairings and subs. Took a pretty deep dive there on harnesses. Coming back to paragliding after you've been away from it, and stepping away from paragliding, what's on the other side. Practical discussion on SIV. Took a pretty deep dive here. We talked a lot about SIV in his previous one because Karlis is an SIV instructor. So we dive into a little bit of SIV and where you want to be getting there with your SIV courses. How to climb better, how to forecast better. We skipped gliding because that's a big topic. But we did talk about speed bar use, kind of practical everyday speed bar use. I loved this one, mitigating testosterone in our decision making that is afflicting our sport. And then we take a real deep dive on reserves. And Karlis does a lot of repacking, has a lot of thoughts about reserves. Should you go for one that opens fast versus slow? How to throw, and different techniques. I got a lot out of this, as I always do from reserve talks, but those are the main subjects we got into, and really enjoyed this. We talked for about an hour and a half on all these subjects, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Cheers. Karlis, great to have you back to the show. I appreciate you doing this for me. All these questions have been coming in the last few months, and I decided to kind of compile them together and ask somebody more knowledgeable than I am about some of these topics. So pretty much, we were just talking before we started recording, most of these topics have been hit in the show. Well, really all of them have at some point, but I thought this is a good opportunity for us to, make sure we're being current and get your potentially very fresh thoughts, especially on reserve. We'll save that for the end. Sounds like you might have some controversial views, but also some exciting developments in that realm. So I'm excited to hear about that. But thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I understand your shoulder's been locked up for the last 90 days because my first question was going to be, have you been participating in all these huge FAIs that have been going down? That Europe's had a really good bunch of weather in the last few weeks. Since I've been serious FOMO with X contests. But
hi, and thank you for having me back. Yeah, I haven't flown. I've been watching them doing big, beautiful flights, and some of them are above my house. And my own local site the site record was broken by 70 kilometers FAI improved on the day. We've had, overall, the weather's been pretty marginal, but the days that were good were exceptionally good. Days that come once in 4 or 5 years, days that I haven't seen in 8 years. That I've been here. So the weather has been exceptionally good when it was good, and then it's kind of mixed bag of weather in between. And the boys here and girls has really utilized the good days, and it's been incredible flying here. Sharper, I thought 250 is the limit. The person did 270 FAI from Sharper, and this is a southeast facing late after. It starts around 11:30 usually, and he took off at 11. And 11:30 is early, so it's been incredible flying here for the really I'm jealous. I had the worst year to choose to have a frozen shoulder that I can't fly myself.
And you didn't do that. You didn't do that flying. You did that doing push-ups, I guess.
Yeah, it's just hitting 40 and doing my regular, irregular push-ups that I've done since I was late teens, and I would come on the routine for a week or two, stop for a week or two, and just restart without thinking about it. Now I'm 40 and I didn't warm up, and I would do sets of 30, 50 and without any worries, because I've done that all my life, adult life anyway. And you can't do that when you're 40. You need to warm up and properly prepare.
Oh, God.
It started in November, and then by May or late April, May is when I had my last flight, because I just can't raise my hand more than 90 degrees anymore till it recovers.
Well,
yeah, no paragliding
plenty of
related.
instructing and events, and I know you've been busy, and I hope you get better quickly. Well, let's get into this list. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is stepping up and stepping down in glider class, and this is for sure a topic we've covered several times. And I always like hearing. Russ Ogden had some great thoughts about this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, because you do a lot of instructing. You've seen both, I'm sure, personalities. There are personalities who take it really slow and want to check all the boxes, and there are personalities that just want to hop on an Enzo right off the bat and go fast and compete with everybody else. And I think there's some solid advice going both ways. We've covered when to step up a lot. We haven't covered too much when to step down. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've done both ways. I've gone all the way to the triple C's, and I've gone from triple C back to ENA. In short, in a nutshell, if you're going to take one thing out of this question, is it's all about currency. And in paragliding, currency is the king. It doesn't matter that, it's like I compare it to marathon running. It doesn't matter that you once could. If you don't practice, you're not going to run a marathon tomorrow. And it's the same flying higher aspect ratio wings, doesn't matter, even the high aspect C wings, two liners these days can be a handful comparingly to nice easy B. And it really comes down to currency. Like for me, the example is that at a time I was flying Peak 4, a two-line D-wing, before COVID. And COVID was my first break of paragliding, as for most of us, we had a lot of layoff. And personally, I had no idea what not currency mean before that, because my longest break was 2 weeks before. And COVID gave several months, if not more. And I went back on the same D that I flew before COVID after several months off. Went in a spring day, 1st of April of all days, in French Alps, Saint-André. Flew for 30, 40 minutes and lost the wing. And my mind could tell me that I'm doing things wrong, but my body wasn't there. Because these higher, more technical wings require more precision. And so my timing was too soon, too late, too strong, too weak. It was just off. And even though I can see I'm making mistakes, I couldn't catch up. And I couldn't fix it in time, so it ended up in the reserve toss for myself. And physically I was fine, but mentally that took me 3 years to recover. And that's something to consider if you're stepping up. Is it really worth it? Do you have the currency? And you can put numbers. You should have X amount of hours per year for this or that class. Really depends. To me, it's all about active piloting, how current you are. I've done thousands of hours, test piloting. I had a big CV before the incident. It doesn't matter, because I took several months off and my skills went away and I couldn't handle the wing. And if I lose skills after several months, after a decade of dedication of priority number 1, 2, and 3, and having no other jobs or other distractions, then what about if you only fly 50 to 100 hours a year? The currency just isn't there. Maybe for some people it lasts longer. For some, it's all individual in the end of the day. But I would say that if you have the currency, you've had a couple of good years that you're flying a lot, you're putting in the hours, you've done a sieve, or you are able to do yourself backflies and all the sorting out of the wing, then stepping up is no problem. But if you just stepping up to make that extra 50-kilometer flight or whatever add to your numbers, the stepping up will only slow you down. And then mental traumas, if you get lucky and don't get physical traumas, takes often a lot longer than the physical to recover. And so stepping up, I say that it depends. Well, it always depends. What mentorships you have, what kind of flying you do, because 100 hours soaring will not help you in Alps. Where 100 hours in Alps will help you with soaring, because it's a different type of flying. And an Alps in September or April is not the same, and it all depends. Because you can fly a high aspect wing in a laminar wind, and there's no issue with that. You take that in 8 meters a second, it's a whole nother ball game. So it always depends. And nowadays, now the Bs that comes out, the high Bs or low Cs, they're incredible wings. Those machines are so much better than some D wings from 5, 6, 7 years ago. So we don't really. I think it's a misconception. We have the classes, and people think that A wing is a shit wing for cross country, which is not true anymore. Low Bs these days can do 150, 200 kilometer flights with no issue in the right hands and right conditions. So that's the stepping up part. Stepping down, what I say to my students a lot is that in other, like kite surfing, you have kite for this wind, that wind, you have different sizes, and you usually have 5 or whatever of them sitting in your garage. But we tend to have 1 or 2. Why don't we have different wings for different conditions? You have your low B for really rough days that you're not comfortable with. When it's smoother, nicer, take the higher aspect wing out and see, and you switch between. I think it's not a cheap sport as such and all the rest of it. But the hospitals are way more expensive than buying another wing. So that's kind of when people talk about that, it's like, well, you're working your skill and you're choosing the tool for the conditions, and then you can adapt. Because it's a lot easier to handle something like Epic 2 than the Diva 2. It's a different machine and it requires or the skill or conditions. Because you can fly Diva in perfectly smooth evening air and not have a worry. So I think what we're missing in this sport is that we tend to have that one wing and that's it. We don't switch around, and we fly it throughout the season from April to September, and the season changes. And if our skill is not adequate, it's not a bad idea to switch the wing. Like as an example, now when I'm gonna go, once my shoulder recovers, I'm not gonna fly the Diva. I'll take my girlfriend's Epic 2, which is a smaller size, and I'll fly that just to get the feeling back before I consider stepping on it, because I've learned my lesson years ago when I threw the rescue. I don't want to repeat the same thing. I respect more pilots who do that than it's like, nah, it's okay, I can do it. There is a bit of a stigma, right? I'm a C pilot or D pilot, and I don't want to go back down to the B. I think that conversation should be changed in our sport. There's nothing wrong switching up and down.
Yeah, I think we need to learn how to reframe as a culture, backing off that should be celebrated, not looked down on. And we certainly saw that in this X-Alps, there were people like Simone who ended up doing really well who didn't launch that night in the storm, just looked at it and went, nope, not doing it, and walked down, and it didn't penalize him at all, did it? I mean, he did really well in the end. And so, I think as a culture, we sometimes celebrate the wrong things, and we need to applaud those decisions for, walking down, stepping down, because they're not always obvious, is it? I mean, when you experienced something that was very obvious. I'm not tuned up. I'm not current. And then boom. But it's not going to always be that obvious. It might just be these little things where you're just 2% off where you need to be. And that may just be, a week or two flying a lower wing and kind of getting back in touch, and you're not looking up so much and freaked out, and your heart's not racing as much, and get back to where things feel good.
Yeah, I mean, even Bruce Goldsmith told me a year or two ago that nowadays if he doesn't fly for a week or two, he doesn't go to a two-liner. He'll take a B-wing or C-wing, have a few flights, and then go back fly the two-liner once he's refreshed.
Wow.
Now, this is Bruce
Yeah,
Goldsmith.
this is someone who's won the world.
The rest of us mortals.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he does that, why are we having this like, oh, I can't step down?
That's interesting. I've never actually
I'm sure
heard
if you
that
talk
we
with,
should go to we should have different kit. We should have a couple more pieces of kit in our garage. That's a great. I hadn't heard that before. I like that thought.
Well, how many skis did you have when you raced?
Exactly, 18 pairs when I was really serious. I had my whole garage was filled with skis. I mean, I've got a lot of wings, but they're all D's or higher. I don't have any B's or C's. So this is something I'm going to be thinking about. This is great.
I have at home good old-fashioned Epics XS's to have fun, or smaller says than I need. Winter hike and flies, I don't take the Diva. I take something fun, easy to fly, and to keep my active piloting going. Some simple acro. I call it active piloting. Because acro is what Caesar and Theo de Blick does. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
I'm not on not at their level, but it's a nice, fun toy to play around.
Yeah.
And this, I don't remember how long ago, but this hit me because all the other sports, we always have multiple toys.
You're right.
Even for cars, we have different tires for different traction, and yet in this sport, we go with the same.
Yeah.
Most of us, anyway.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good thought. All right, harnesses. Open versus pod, fairing versus no fairing, seatboard versus hammock, sub versus non-sub. And we could go real deep here. That's a lot just in itself right there. But let's get your thoughts on harnesses.
I guess I'll start with the simplest one, the sub or non-sub. If you're not chasing world records or flying in PWC or some high-level comps, you don't need it. It has the performance and the stability. Stability, other harnesses has the same level of stability. Yes, it has the performance, but most of us, we can't utilize it. There's so much more we need to do. A simple Impreza 4 will be as nice and stable for you, uncomparably simpler to operate with, and visibility issues and all that. So for subs, I think it's a great thing for the sport. We have developing something, we've been focused on wings so much, and finally we're now moving also in harness, so it's a great thing. But for most of us, it's not needed. When it comes to open versus pod, of course, when you learn for acro, active piloting, seated is more adequate, let's put it that way. For pod, the moment you want to do some distance, or even if you want to fly for 3+ hours, it's just more comfortable. The position, the way you are, I would recommend not to go for the lightest out there. Go for medium or heavy, nicer, more comfortable. The wing will be more calm. The lighter the harness, the more twitchy the wing. The heavier the harness, the more stable the wing. Any wing, it doesn't matter which wing you're flying. And if it's your first pod, don't get the X-Alps stuff. That's too twitchy, too uncomfortable. It will be cutting in your ribs, and it's just, when you have, it serves its purpose. And if your mission is hike and fly in Volbivik, and that's really what you're going for, sure, yeah, get the lightest stuff. But if you just want to fly cross country, get something medium or heavy. The heavier it is, the more comfortable it is. Not only for your physical thing, but also for thermaling, for aggressive air, it all dampens down. And it really comes down to simple thing that the less material there is, the less structure, integrity you can build. Not integrity in the sense of safety, because they all are very nice, or most of the harnesses that we have on the market is really safe. It's the comfort. And paragliding is supposed to be 95% mental game once we get there. And if the harness is twitching and the wing is talking too much, you'll be focused on all those distractions. And the more comfortable you are in the harness, the more you will be able to make better decisions. And that will make you better flights and make your personal goals and all the rest of it. Another hammock and seated, for pods, it's really, I don't remember when was the last time I've flown seated pod. Mines are kind of semi. I don't personally see a huge difference because the lying down position gives you less weight shift authority anyway. It depends how they are built. This is, to me personally, I think it's all about comfort and what you prefer. My body is different from yours, and everybody are different. When it comes to weight shift, if you set up your pod properly, meaning that your eyes basically is over the cockpit and not your upper body, then your weight shift authority goes it's not limited, it's a lot less than when you're sitting up vertically. And if you're gonna go for pod, the idea is the aerodynamics, but also not necessarily, because you can sit up. It's less aerodynamic, but it's more comfortable, and then you'll have a bit more weight shift authority. Of course, seated will give you more authority if you're sitting upright, but if you're leaning back as it's designed, I don't know if there's a huge difference, because some of those hummocks are pretty well done with the weight shift as well. So my best advice is go to something like Kupikar or any other festival, sit in all of them and find the one that fits your body. Because the flaring thing, don't go for the big ones because they're messy and they can go in front of your eyes when you have backflies or some sort of mess in there. A simple pod with a small flaring in the back or no flaring, it depends what you want to use it for. And if it's your first, don't worry about it. The extra performance is not going to change your life. It's the decision making and all that is way more important. So it's really harness. This is all about what fits your body and adjust it to your body, which is more tricky sometimes maybe. All the rest of it, when to step up on pod, that's a whole another topic. But again, it's highly individual to me. I don't have an hour or time. It's more the purpose. What for? Winter flying is a lot nicer in pod than seated. It's warmer, for example. Yeah. And if it's a calm winter flying, then the pod won't be an issue. And I don't see pod being an issue in general. In civs, there's a lot of conversation about that, what's safer and all that. I don't see large difference if you bend your legs after something happens, so you can follow the wing. And that's a habit to train a bit, but yeah, to me it's just comfort, and don't go for the big ones. If you need answer to this question, don't go for SUP. I will put it that way.
I like what you said too about the really lightweight stuff. I mean, we've hammered this on the show in other places, but I always think that, every piece of equipment is a compromise on something. When we fly the Cadillacs, when we're racing, they're also really heavy. They're hard to carry around. If you land out, they're hard to get back. I mean, I remember Baptiste was here at the World Cup last year, and he didn't want to hike his gear 10 feet, because he's got 15 kgs of lead in it, ballasting up and stuff. So it's all a compromise. And I mean, flying 8 hours, if that's your goal, on super lightweight X-Alps kit is not the same as flying, medium, comfortable, 2 reserves, a Cadillac harness. I just had a nice flight a couple days ago, and I kept thinking, gosh, I'm really glad I'm on this rather than my X-Alps kit, because it's just more physical. It's more work. It's a compromise. You're always compromising something.
Yeah, I agree. It's I flew the X-Alps range 2 for 2 seasons, and I switched to Impreza, which is pretty much the 2 extremes, and I couldn't understand why I punished myself, because I did the 8-hour flights in the X-Alps harness, which it's not, and range is amazing for a lightweight harness. It's an amazing machine. The range 2, I haven't flown the 3, but just the Impreza was so much more comfortable because there's so much more material and you can make it
It's easier driving a Cadillac.
Yeah.
It's just easier,
Yeah, exactly. And hiking, but I don't hike that much these days. Back then I was, doing some hiking, and now I get picked up and I, take a car up the mountain. So yeah, I agree. It's that's why we have so many harnesses. You can choose what purpose and have a few, same as wings. Why not have a few?
Yeah. What I can say about that, when you have a few, when it comes to harnesses, is you've just got to get in a really good habit of, as soon as you launch, think about it before you launch, as always, when you're doing your checks, but I really like doing the whole familiarize yourself over and over and over and over again with the handle, just because every harness is a little, the structure is different. Just because, when it goes tits up, then you're not going, oh yeah, I'm on this harness. And that, I had a pretty wild mistake doing that a few years ago, doing some acro stuff over the desert, towing over the dirt, and just had switched out my harness the night before. And that's a whole story in itself. It was everybody who's listening.
I remember that story. Yeah. Good on you for going public about it. Not many people would.
Oh God. But part of it was literally just, when I threw the first, wasn't attached. And then I forgot that I had a second, I'd watched it kind of laughing, and then went, wait a minute, I got another reserve. And so, yeah, it's just making sure when you switch out your gear, you can, your mind can forget, if you've been spending a lot of time on one and you switch to another, it's just good to get refamiliarized. Okay. We both talked about this before we started recording. We're not sure either one of us are very good to talk about this subject, but stepping away, actually first coming back to paragliding after being away from it. You've had this shoulder injury, but you haven't come back yet. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, I did a bit of took a break for quite a while after my reserve throw, because that took me a while to figure out what I want to do next. And, because I got lucky. I walked away from it, but it wasn't because of my skill. I got lucky. So that I like to overthink things anyway, so that took me a while to process. And first thing I did is I took Epic, so it's a low B, basically an ENA wing, instead of the two-liner. And I ground handled it for a while before I even launched. And I went on a calm day instead of a full blast day, and short flights and gradually increasing. And so I stepped, what is that, how many classes is that? But it's not only the class, it's also small aspect, going from a D two-liner. I don't remember what the peak fall was, but Epic is very small, so comparingly. For me, it was coming back, especially after mental or physical trauma. At least for me, the goal was to take it easy. And before even any big cross countries, because the first season I barely flew any, and every time I was near terrain I was nervous. So I spent the whole winter hiking, flying top to bottoms to do active piloting. And for me, simple backfly was terrifying. And some days I couldn't do it, sometimes. So I went for simple 360s or wing overs or something that I was more comfortable with. And that took me months and months and months to get comfortable again, because it's a mental trauma. I didn't have the physical. And so I think first don't, if it is after incident or accident, take your time. And we all are different. We have different ways how to deal with these things. And don't beat yourself up if it feels scary the first time you're going, and you don't have to take off, and just because you got to the takeoff. And it's a process, and the slower you take it, the less likely you get scared again. Because the first, I don't know, probably a year was really difficult for me to fly in thermic air close to terrain, because I was just noticing that my heart rate goes up, I'm getting tense. All the things that never happened to me before. I didn't know what it means to be scared of flying till I threw my reserve. And the whole process took 3 years till I got back to comfortable. And now we'll see, because it's another 3 months that I'm off. So, and I just, a year ago got good at it mentally. So this is going to be, ask me once I start flying how that went. But the process, and I support. I mean, without the people in my life that help me with all the process, this is not. It's not a sport to do alone. We fly alone, but we should definitely not be alone when we're recovering from physical or mental traumas. The more people that care for you is around you and support you in that whole thing, and not beat you around the head for not flying again, because it's not easy once you get properly scared. At least not for me. Everybody's different, as always. So yeah, I would say take your time would be the best advice, and don't be too harsh on yourself. To be the best advice I got during that process, I think that I use the most, is that talk to yourself as you would talk to a 10-year-old kid. So imagine that you're talking to your 10-year-old Gavin, not the adult that you are today. You would not be nearly as strict as you are to yourself as an adult. That helped me a lot to talk to myself as a 10-year-old. It was a simple trick, but it worked.
That's a great trick. This leads us to the next one, which I really like this question because it's something I have thought about a lot. I don't know. I'm glad you're the one that has to answer it, though, not me. Stepping away from paragliding, what's on the other side? And like I said, neither one of us have done that.
No idea.
What do you think about? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? We see people come and go in this sport a lot. Often people who are really addicted and really doing well, and then you see it in competitions. They suddenly, hey, so and so's not showing up anymore. But I don't know if I can answer the question.
I don't think I'm the right person to answer. I don't have a plan B. I have plans for the next decade or two of what to do, but stepping away is not an option. So I don't have a plan B for that. I don't think there's somebody better than you and I to answer this question.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what we can talk about a bit is just the concept of it, because I think in any professional sport or just recreational sport, at some point you could age out. Not everybody, we see people participate in this well into their 80s, which is awesome. But knowing that you're getting more fragile for sure, and being a lot more careful, I guess, with the whole physical side of things is smart. But I think it's hard to have something that kind of defines who you are.
Yeah, and there's Bruce had a cross-country magazine article some years ago, Bruce turning 60, saying that by the time we're 80, we're all going to fly ENAs, which is based on research that reaction timing goes away for all of us. And for me, that's another 40 years to go. So that feels really far in the future. But yeah, I will be flying ENAs in my 80s. That's the goal. But I don't see myself fully going away from the sport. Even if I can't fly, I'll still be involved in organizing things or helping with some research to build better, safer equipment in some shape or form, which we'll get to the rescue parts. Then, so I have a lot of ideas there. And now organizing competitions, I have so many new ideas how to improve safety. From our last talk to this one, I have a lot of news on that topic, which is the whole, I think, another podcast we need just on that. But my mind is fully, that's all I think about, basically. And so even if I can't fly, there will be still things that I'll be. And this sport is so diverse, and there's so many things to still learn that there's nothing quite as intriguing for me in life or as complex that I would like to keep on learning and improving. For me, this is it, basically.
So the answer is don't step away, folks.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that does lead us to the next one. That's we covered SIV quite a bit on your first show. So if you want to know a deeper dive on SIV, go listen to the first one we did with Karlis, and we've done another number of shows, Malin and a bunch of others, Jockey on SIV. But the question was a more practical discussion about SIV. So I'd like to know even what that means to you, but also practicing maneuvers outside of SIV. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, because that is something I've always struggled with. I can get in an SIV and do 25 stalls in a flight just over and over and just without thinking and love it. And I've just done a ton of stalls. But when I go to just flying in a perfectly good place, not over the water and not with an instructor, that kind of thing, but where I should just be doing a ton of stalls, it's always more nerve-wracking. I have to force myself to do it because it's just, I don't feel like I'm in that kind of quote-unquote controlled environment. So what should we be doing outside of SIV on a regular basis? Big wing overs, or what should we be doing? And should we just be doing stalls all the time if we're comfortable with it?
Yeah. To me, which is not good for my business, but you should do as many sieves as you need to a point you don't need them. And that is related to the question that you have to practice yourself. And so what I recommend, if you are not comfortable going yourself, you do a refresher course. You do like a 3-day thing. You stay, I do it in Lake Garda, so you stay in Lake Garda for another week. And you knock it out, or a couple of days, whatever you can logistically do. And do the same, because you're now fresh off the course. Then you can practice without the instructor in your ear, because that's a very different sensation. By yourself, see what you can do. Then ideally come back to the same course and polish things to the next level. And then after that, you can do some more things over water in a safe environment. But as soon as you can, after the course, while it's all fresh in your head, go knock out a few stalls over ground. If they went well over water, if you feel like you're in, like you said, you've done 25 and you're feeling in control over water, the sooner the better. Because the uncomfortable thing you're talking about, that's just mental. And the longer you wait and wait and wait, the skill goes away, physical as well. But if you do it straight after, then you still have the physical skill. You just did it a couple of days ago, so there's no reason you can't do it over ground. And I wouldn't also recommend doing your first on a high aspect wing. Do it on the lower aspect. That, of course, helps. And the reason because this is for pilots who don't have their own active piloting yet. So the sieve first is just to have a nice instruction, so you're in good, safe environment to get everything going. And whatever, it doesn't matter if that's the stalls or it's rotations or asymmetrics, frontals, auto rotations, whatever level you got through the course, you practice that without the instructor, and then come back, move forward or otherwise, and then go on your own. That would be, in my head, the ideal thing, because you have instructor, no instructor, instructor, and then you go off for yourself. And I think with good instructions and with a B wing classes, C's depends on the pilot, because it's more, the higher aspect wings is more technical, a bit more precise, where the A's and B's are less precision needed and they're more forgiving. So on the B wing, if you do sieve a couple of days off on a sieve, I'm pretty comfortable that most pilots I will be able to get that you can do it comfortably over ground, if in that schedule, because you can knock out a lot of repetition in those courses, and doing it yourself is the key. And to me, that once a year sieve course or once in a new wing and all that, if anything, that is a false confidence builder, because we have to practice it. We can't just do one sieve and then hope that several months down the road, when the asymmetric happens in a while, that actually going to help you. And so, yes, as much as the moment you have a height, do 360s, just rapid exits with roll control, work on that you can do, and don't need that much altitude. Backflies, the higher the better, just in case you make a mistake. And the more you do them, the better. I mean, I do them every flight. If I guide, if I wait at the cloud base for a student, I'll do a heli or backfly or something to come down. Instead of spiraling, I'll heli down. If I do a long cross country, I usually try to climb high before landing so I can do some maneuvers tired. Because more likely than not, I'll lose my wing tired. So I want to practice tired. So I build muscle memory, and that it's constantly. There's not a flight that I haven't done some misty or spinny thingy, something playful. Doesn't have to be backfly, because most things starts with spinning the wing, or it doesn't have to be negative, like fully negative backfly. But something that once you get comfortable at it, you need to practice it to keep being comfortable about it. Does that answer the question?
Excellent. It does, yeah, and it makes me realize I'm pretty rusty right now. because I wouldn't be very comfortable with any of those things right now on a regular basis. Okay, next one. I mean, there's books dedicated to this. There's a whole chapter in my book dedicated to this, but how to climb better.
Right. I have a personal story too. Maybe that helps pilots. Is I learned all the cross-country flying with Bruce Goldsmith, being part of the company. And Bruce, there's also YouTube videos about it nowadays, is he likes that you fly hands up as much as possible. You use the brakes as little as needed to achieve what you need. And then before X-Alps, before I supported Theo, we went to fly together, and he flew with deep brakes on. And like both brakes on and a lot of brakes and in a thermal. And I flew no brakes on in a thermal, and we climbed the same. And I was like, how does that work? When I asked Theo, he's like, well, that's how he flies. And then during the X-Alps, I asked Tony Bender, because it's what does he thinks about these different techniques, because it didn't make sense to me that one can go hands up and the other one is deep in, and we climb at the same speed. And Tony likes to fly opposite. He likes to fly deep brakes in and core real tight and slow down the wing. And Bruce and Tony are two legends in this sport, and I can't just ignore one and listen to the other. So that really made a mess in my mind, because I know that both of them are right. So it took me years, and I'm still working on it. And I think it's just a matter of using the right technique for the right conditions. And there might be something to do with wing designs as well. Because Bruce designed his wings in a certain way. Tony has been test pilot for Nova, so I assume that there's a preference each designer or test pilots how they like their wings. But then again, and I'm sure you fly with little bit of brakes and a lot of brakes depending on the conditions. So what I'm trying to say is don't be afraid to experiment. To me, there's no right or wrong way really how to thermal. What I've learned listening to a lot of different pilots, as long as when you do climb, everybody else is not out climbing you, that's a good way to climb. It's kind of, and how exactly, everybody has their own a little bit of style. It depends on wings and the weight, the loadage. There's a lot of things, wind, no wind. So to me, there's no right or wrong way. You have to find the balance between the worlds. For windy, light, bubbly stuff, yes, hands up, C or B control, most cases will be better than a lot of brakes on, especially if you're going into wind. If it's a screamer, yeah, both brakes on and bank it in and grab it, yeah, that most likely than not, that's going to be better than hands up or little brakes. And then there's everything in between the two worlds. It's not easy thermaling, and that's what I love about it. It's every day is different, every thermal is different, and you have to adapt to it.
There's a real art that I'm noticing at the World Cup level with the folks that are very frequently in the top 10. They have a move at the top of every climb that I really am puzzled. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, but they'll come out 10 meters above everybody else. They'll just do a little bit of a turn, a spin. I've been told that sometimes, and again, it's very pilot specific. There are pilots who won't use their inside brake, especially at the top of the climb. They'll go back and they'll just do a little tweak with their Bs. What I will say is there's a very fine and quite sexy art to exiting the thermal that spills you out above, if you're in a big gaggle, that extra 10, 15 meters really adds up over the course of the race, and they're then in the most dominant commanding position, and everybody is working for them. You're not the tool of everybody else. Then you're on top of the gaggle, and it's a very easy place to be in competition. When you're in that position, you don't have to think, you don't have to do much. So I would say, as you're getting better at climbing, the beginning is just try to climb with the others, but as you're really getting better, especially if you start getting into racing, work on these little bits here and there that can make a big difference.
There was a research done a couple of years back, I think, and they put all the sensors and all that, and the difference between the top 10 and the rest of the pack, it's just basically precision. The fine-tuned detail was the difference. If you just look at it or film, it doesn't look much different, but there's a really tiny details. For the exiting, it's been a while, but I looked into sailplanes. They have strategies for this. So there's something, look into sailplane piloting. It's a bit different, but there's strategies. For me, I don't feel like I'm there yet. So that's sort of, I'll leave it for later for myself to figure that out. Because I'm not really competing myself. I actually organize these days more than I compete. So it's, but yeah, I've noticed that as well. It's incredible what they are doing, and the fine detail is, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's down in that, half of 1% kind of thing. You said you had some good thoughts on this, how to forecast better. Our sport is so dependent on this. We've seen these big triangles going down the last few days in the Alps. A huge one is just what launch to be on, what time. So how to forecast better. What are your thoughts on that?
Really, the easiest is hire somebody. It's like, I'm serious. I have a mentor for 8 years that's been obsessed about Meteo since he was 10 years old. So he's now mid-50s. So 45 years every single day checking Meteo since he was a 10-year-old kid. I can't beat that. And for all the events or courses, everything I do, he does the forecasting for me, because there's levels, and I'm 3.5 decades behind him in experience and knowledge. And all these big days, there's a bunch of highly experienced people in the area and in the Meteo that, as a pack, they come together and figure out the days. Most of the big days are done in a not gaggle necessarily, but there's a whole group of people
setting
behind the scenes making all and chatting with each other, and it's not one guy. And I think that's what maybe should be talked more about, because it's, you see a track log of one guy winning or getting the flight. There's usually another 4 or 5 track logs following him, and they fly together, they plan together.
Very close.
Find somebody that is better than you and ask a lot of questions. And it's really, because Meteo, I used to give some simple rules of thumb, but it's just Meteo is micrometeorology, which we use for flying, is incredibly detailed. And there's so many things that affect it that there's no simple rule, really, especially for these days. Like, we had heat, we had dry, we had Mistral before. So there are some things that affect. Mistral brings dry, cold air. Heat helps, high base. So there are no wind, or less, like the Meteo wind wasn't much. So there are some bullet points for that. And we have more and more apps that work and don't, depending on the place and time. So for forecasting is incredibly difficult to be super accurate, I think, personally. But maybe my reference is too high, because my mentor is incredibly good at what he does, and so I'm comparing myself to him, and I don't think I'm very good comparing to him.
Yeah, it's easy to offload that too. I mean, I have the same. My supporter in the last couple of races, Revis, he just really tweaks out on weather, and so it's easier for me to just get my kit ready and do what he tells me to do. I'm never going to understand it at his level. I don't have 50 tabs open to every possible thing that you're looking at. What I would say about forecasting that has taken me quite a long time to learn and continue to learn is that models are models, and they're all doing a better and better job all the time. And they have incredible, these apps have incredible, SkySight and XE Skies and Meteo Blue. They're all getting better all the time. They're always adding layers that really help us. What I would say though is, the more we get tied to the forecast, the less, in some cases, the less well we fly. We get totally sorted in on, this is what I'm doing with this day, and we forget to be pilots and follow the sky. I mean, again, that what the models do a very poor job of accounting for is that micro side of things. You know, this slope getting a little more heat at this time of the day. This is not something that the models can resolve, and so, or not very well anyway. And so, you know, I think we have to be remain flexible. You know, this could be a day that you're going to go to Col du Hazard and do a 300K FAI, and maybe that works out, but maybe 6 hours into the day, something has changed, something you hadn't anticipated, and you just keep beating your head against the wall trying to do what you planned on doing rather than what the day is giving you.
Yeah, fly the day, not the forecast.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be hard to switch. I find that, you know, in racing, we always talk about how important it is to shift gears, you know, and fly the day. But it's, you know, if you don't, you're on the deck and you lose. But yeah, I think we have to remember that with forecasting as well. It's you know, sometimes.
Another thing about forecasting is what I've noticed is people don't necessarily pay attention what's going on now. Like when you leave the house, drive to the mountain, there's a lot of information in clouds above you. And I think to us, forecasting is nice to plan the big flights. And to your point about adapting to the day, now that I'm running events and when we have a briefing, let's say 12 o'clock or whatever, 11:30, and then we have another half an hour later, people often don't notice the changes in the air around them. From the moment we arrived on takeoff to it usually takes a couple hours for people to start flying. And it's the same in the courses, that's even longer period, you know, from the morning briefing till the actual takeoff. I think there's an art to it, and because we're not pilots only on takeoff, so we can observe it from the office window and wherever driving on the highway, because that's the next hour or two is quite predictable just from what you see, if you know what you're looking at and how to read it. And there's quite a lot of books for that, how to read the actual cloud and what they tell you and the winds and all that. And I think that would be something really valuable to pay more attention to, because then when you fly, you see something, you can, okay, that doesn't look good because maybe in 2 hours we're going to have a shower there. Maybe I should, go other direction and try other route.
Yeah. Karlis, I'm mindful of our time here, and I really want to hear what you have to say about reserve. So let's skip gliding because that is an incredibly complicated topic. I'd like to hear briefly your thoughts on everyday speed bar use. And then let's get into this interesting one, mitigating the testosterone-driven decision-making afflicting our sport. That I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. So speed bar and testosterone.
For me, the moment I leave thermal, I'm on bar. First for sure, so 50, 60%. That's where I fly it at. And I rarely go over 80 because I'm not racing. I'm not doing competition flying. And even in cross-country, I only go over 80 if I'm in a really bad sink or lee side somewhere pinned down, then I'll use the 100% of the wing. Otherwise, 50 to 80 is where I play. And then the controls goes on the Bs or Cs, depending on which wing you fly, as much as possible. And you're supposed to, these days, especially with the loop-through Bs and C connection, so you have a better control of the wing, or the two-liners that you just lock in whichever step you're on, and keep your feet there and just control with Bs. The wings fly well these days, the two-liners especially, that you can have a lot of control. You can slow down your speed by changing angle of attack just on the Bs, and there's a lot you can do with it. I'm still nervous with that technique, especially when I go 80%. I often step down to 50 to do the same. But that's me. I don't like to push limits. I don't like to, I enjoy flying, but I don't care about racing. But yeah, for me, speed bar, the moment you're not thermaling, it's on bar zone, at least 50, 60%. especially into wind. Downwind, still most wings will fly better up to 30% for glide efficiency. And if you put a polar curve, and then trim speed is more efficient, but that's in perfectly calm air that we don't fly in, and the speed bar helps cutting out through any kind of bubbles and things, so you don't slow down, pitch back, go forward. That's where the inefficiency comes. That's where the speed bar helps you cut through the air better. So yes, you have theoretically more sink because you accelerated the wing, but you cut through the air better, so you gain more glide that way. So for me, out of the thermal, first step, second step if I'm pushing it, or and yeah, so I have ratchet pulleys that lock it in, so I don't have to hold it because I'm on the bar non-stop. And to me, this is not even racing. 50 to 80% of bar is not racing; it's just normal flying.
Okay, and then how do we mitigate that we're dudes? Well, I think that, and again, this is something maybe we haven't tackled it exactly like that question, but we've talked about quite a bit on the show. I'll use the X-Alps as an example, and this was supposed to be a show that specifically does not talk about the X-Alps because I cover it so much. But, there was a lot of chatter this year about the risks and that these are gladiators and not adventure race and the whole thing. And, I saw comments on Instagram one day where I was doing something and that what I hate, this was the comment, what I hate is that, these exceptional pilots are setting an example. And showing what normal people shouldn't do, and that to me is not giving a lot of credit to people. If you think you can watch Kriegel taking off in 50 kilometers an hour wind and think, yeah, I've got that move, then you're not long for this world anyway. That Darwin's going to come and get you, and so. To me, it's just we cannot be lemmings in this sport, and we're different one day to the next, and how hydrated and how rested and the whole thing and how current and all the things you talked about. And so, that's just, in a sense,
well,
I find
compare
that argument kind of ridiculous. That there's just a huge range of ability here, and there always will be, and. You can't watch somebody in the X-Alps in a really strong Fern day and go, that seems reasonable. It's not, but it is for them.
We had the same conversations. Of course, everybody talked about this year's X-Alps, all the wins and all the rest of it. Well, we have the motorbike race, the Man of Isles, where they go 300 k's an hour on Isle of Man, that one.
Isle of Man.
Well, what are you going to think that you can do the same on your motorbike? It's like they're not setting an example. They're showing what the motorbike can do and what an incredibly skilled racer can do. And in that race, there's pretty much every year somebody wipes out, and it's accepted, and we have no issue with that. So for me, it's you go there. You've been in the race. It's your choice. What risk levels you're going to take, it's up to you. It's none of my business to tell you, Gavin, don't go in that. It's like if you're comfortable, you want to do that, it's up to you. And to me, the races, they're tough. And one of the reasons, because I've been thinking about competing years ago, not anymore. Like I saw what you guys do is like, that's way out of my comfort level, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with people taking off with that if they choose to. And as long as you don't put anybody else in danger, which they don't, the solo pilots flying themselves. This argument is, we have plenty of things that people do in this world, and we let them. And why should X-Alps be any different? And just because they're doing it, as you said, doesn't mean that somebody who just learned that you can do the same. It's also decades and decades of and thousands of hours of practice. It's not something. These are not beginner pilots by any means.
There you go. All right. Well said. Okay. Reserves. You are a reserve expert. So that was the first part of this. All about reserves from a reserve expert. So the round versus square versus regalo, lightweight versus regular weight, how to decide the actual right size, actual lifespan of reserves, blah, blah, blah. This is a long question. You know it all.
Right.
You've got some thoughts.
Let's start with simplest between round, squared, or regalo. most round rescues has pendulum instability built into the system, right? So if you are at the weight range they certify that, it should be quite pendulum stable. But the way the system is, with a bit of air moving, the rescue will start penduluming you, and so that's not a good thing. So if you're close to the ground with a swing, that adds to your speed. Where the squared, diamonds, or regalos don't have that. They are very pendulum stable. So for that simple reason, for me, it's squared or regalo. If you're over water, not a big deal. You can take a small round for quick opening. But if you're flying over terrain, it's squared, diamond, or triangle. Because it's just the pendulum alone is a big difference. And I've gotten lucky a few times because of pendulum. I have a YouTube video talking about the pendulum thing and how to deal with it. Then for sizes, because the test is accepted up to minus 5.5 meters a second, which is fast. And the difference is between, I mean, you'll survive and you'll be all right, but you might break an ankle or leg. So I recommend pilots to take a reserve. I mean, Theo de Blic recommends up to 40%. So I usually say 20 to 30, 40 as well, depending on, that you can do with squared or regalo, but you can't do with round, because the lighter you are on the round, the bigger the pendulum issue. So that's why squared and rounds and so that's take a bigger size than you need. For regalos, the triangle ones, it's quite a complex thing to get it flying and get your wing, and you most likely they're not going to be twisted when you throw it. So that's something people, yes, you can steer it once you get to the steering bit, but there's a lot of things to do before to get to the because you have your main canopy, you're probably twisted on regalo, because as you throw, no matter how nicely you pack it and put it in your harness, as you throw it, it will rotate, and more often than not, it will just twist itself up. Just the risers, not the whole thing. It will open nicely. Regalos, the beamers, they're really nicely packed, double opening, the quick openings, so they are factory designed really nicely for that, but they will come out twisted more often than not. So you have to deal with your main canopy, untwist the regalo before you can start steering. So it's a bit advanced. If it's your only reserve, I wouldn't recommend the regalo. As a secondary, amazing, go for it. So for a single rescue, diamond or squared is a better option in my opinion, because you throw it, it's simpler to open, and some of them are semi-steerable as well. Where regalos is great for acrobatics or as a secondary. If you're high, you throw it, you have time. But most of our flying in the cross country is in the red zone, sort of, right? Close to terrain that we have short time to react, and we need to throw quick and fast, and we want them to open fast. As far as lifespan, the manufacturer recommended is 10 years. Rescue doesn't really, I mean, there's also insurance issue for that. You shouldn't have older, because insurance companies won't cover you there. I mean, my first reserve was 25 or 30 years old, still worked. I'm not recommending that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. I changed mine. I think oldest reserve I had recently was 8 years and was changed this season. So I keep them fresh just because if I need to use it, it's better works. And so for me, I don't leave anything to the chance, and reserves are not that expensive. If you keep them for 8 years, you might as well switch it out. So I like to switch them out before the deadline, sort of, so I have a margin. That doesn't mean they won't work. It's depends also if you have a lot of sand and things. Depends where you're flying, what environment the rescue has lived. I live in France in Alps. We don't have those issues. There's different philosophies about how many times the reserve can go in the water before it's deemed not airworthy. I think it was API, if memory serves, you can look that up, but I think it was 25 times in water before you should switch your reserve, for example. So there's a lot of different ideas. I don't know how many of them are based in research. Also, what I'm gonna talk about packing reserves itself, it's not done in the research. It's currently anecdotal evidence. That's based on what I've seen and experimented myself, and what I've seen in sieves and YouTube videos, and my own experience with reserve throws, which I have about 13 at the moment, rescue throws. Yeah, so the biggest really consideration so the squared or regalo, that's clear. The next big thing which I would recommend pilots to look at before you decide to buy a rescue, look at the manual, what the manual say, how to pack the reserve. We have a reserve test, the endurance test is a vertical drop at 40 meters a second, if I'm not mistaken exactly the numbers, shock opening. So the rescue has to withstand 40 meters a second free fall-ish before it opens. And the calculation is that if you lose both carabiners at the same time, or you lose the whole line set, and you have a bit of a free fall by the time you react, pull, throw. So the calculation was something like 36, 38 meters a second from memory. This is all EN certification is written down. And so the test has put in with a margin, which is normal procedure for testing things. And because of that, especially lighter reserves, they are packed slower to withstand the test, so they can come to the market. And we want light stuff. As we talked about harnesses, there are trade-offs. And in reserves as well, a lot of light reserves are packed for slower open. The canopy itself is packed to open slower. And something like Regalo, for example, there's quite a few reserves that are packed for quicker opening. I don't know them all. I know that Regalos are packed that way, and they open really fast because of it. So that's really important before you buy one, to see what the manual say, how you're supposed to pack by the manufacturer, and that will show you if it's fast or slow. And the way you want to see it is that basically the rescue should have as many opening options from any side. So if you make this sort of square when you pack the rescue, when it's fully open and the cells are on both sides, ideally you want to make an S horizontally, and when you have the long SE or W thing stretched out, that should be S as well, kind of snaky thingy. That way you have wind catching it from any direction, and then you want to have the air intake as messy as possible where the lines come out, because if you imagine a rescue packed like with a nice iron shirt, it's nice and neat, the air can't get in there and it flows around, and that doesn't open. But if you have a messy air opening, it will help it open. And there's a lot of reserves these days that are packed on itself. So when you open it sort of square, when you have cells separated 50% to each side, the first folds go on itself, sort of goes in, and then a couple times even sometimes. And the leading edge, or the place where the air gonna take the rescue first, near the lines coming out, is even folded inside in a triangle shape, making it very nicely aerodynamic shape on one side of the reserve, where other side will open if the wind comes from that side. But the folded on itself side has no way for wind to grab anything. It will fly like any wing, sort of. And you can have a look at some of the videos, YouTube, you see the rescues kind of floating and not opening. You have the sausage, the white sausage, and it's floating till it hits something, and then it starts untangling, but it's usually already in the lines. So it's done, there's market wants lighter things, and the certification tests are done in a way because to protect pilots in case we have a catastrophic failure of our gear. So it's a tricky, and currently this is just an opinion. There's no research done, so I'm not trying to bash anybody here. It's just something to consider when you choose your gear. And the manuals, you can find them online. They're all available before you buy, and have a look how it's packed and if that suits your flying style.
Explain further what you would like it to look like for air to get it on both sides.
So this is just the canopy part. There's also how we put the lines in, but the canopy part itself, the first before you actually start folding the rescue, you go through the cells. You count the cells, make sure they're neatly made, and then you put them equally on both sides. You have 50% one side, 50% other side. And that's kind of a sort of a rectangle thing, depending on the rescue. Regalos are packed a bit differently than the squared ones or round ones, with variations, of course. And then from that rectangle thingy, you want to have basically an S or W. So it follows, so nothing is folded on itself, but it's, you kind of bend one under, then all the way over, halfway back over.
Yep.
So then you have a S or W's, and that way you have sort of those dips on both sides. So for the long vertical sausage, so the wind comes from both sides, and then the rescue can be opened by the wind, no matter which direction it's thrown. And it's this the folding when it's a sausage, it's usually an S in most packing these days. Some of them have the air intake, or where the lines connect, they fold it inside and then fold the rest of it on top, which slows it down even more. Which basically for me, you want that rescue to grab the air as easy as possible, as fast as possible, because mostly you're going to throw it near terrain. And personally, for me, I'll take the chance that, because the likelihood of carabiners, both of them failing, and all of my lines going, is really slim. As long as you check your gear, you change your carabiners sooner than needed, because aluminium carabiners I would change every season or two, steel's longer. But if you change your carabiners, gear doesn't fail that often anymore. We don't have, except if you overuse your carabiners or you never check your lines, and different story. But if you regularly check your gear, the line set, and you change the carabiners, that likelihood is really, really slim. But the likelihood of us having an asymmetric and going for auto rotation close to terrain is a lot higher. So for me, it's a simple thing of math. Yes, it's not as certified, and I repack my own rescues to make them fast opening, and because then they open quick. I can't recommend this because there's reasons for that, but it's you can buy rescues that are packed for fast opening, and if you're informed, you can see what you're buying before you buy. And not always the lightest is the best for that, because lighter material is weaker than strong. And on top of that, what I like to do is that once it's packed, you close if it's imagine a simple 4-leaf reserve container. You put the packed reserve in, you close 3 leaves, and you close the first loop, rubbery bungee, with the lines that comes out of the reserve first. So you have your canopy closed, and then you put all the rest of the lines in a normal S shape, and with the lines that you leave about, the lines you leave out is roughly from your hip, your hand, and another 40-ish centimeters. And that's different from the hip, from the harness, from the first contact of the harness. Every harness is different, where the first contact will be, right? And our arm lengths are different, each of us. So what I like to leave is your arm length plus about 40-50 centimeters. So you have time to throw, release, and the rescue starts opening a bit away from you, so it doesn't come tangling into your harness. And so it gives you place to throw, to have the strength to inertia. And by doing that, what I call double opening is that you close the canopy, then you put all the lines in, you leave out as much needed for your body, and close the loop with a second loop from the lines, if that makes sense, right? So when you throw, what happens is that you throw it out, the first will open the lines. And the canopy, whatever weight it is, you give it inertia, and it will fly away from you as much as the lines allow you to go. And gravity will take over, or whatever dynamic maneuvering you're doing, or auto rotation or whatever, that will give some momentum to the reserve, and once the line stretches out, it will have a sort of a little shock back, and that helps it pop. And that gives it less likely to go in the lines, because the reserve will fall down. Well, it will. And if you're in auto rotation, you're not losing that much height. You're just rotating. And if you throw the reserve, it will go more down, away from the lines. And because it has inertia, it will pop. And before it comes to the wing, it will be half inflated or more. And then it's not on the bigger. The likelihood of going into lines is a lot less. Where if you have a slow opening, or especially the on its self-folded one, where one side is aerodynamic, it can just hang as a sausage down there and not open, and then eventually kind of float up to the lines and go in, which YouTube is quite full of those video examples. Right. That it's a bit.
Yeah, now I'm getting it. So, I can maybe be a little bit ruder than you are, than you want to be. What I'm gathering is that you're being very PC about this, but there's the manufacturers who have decided to cheat, in a sense, the certification process, and that's probably a strong word, but are going for a slow opening, and it's in most cases for what we are using them for, combat situations, low to the ground where there's not a lot of margin.
Right.
That's not probably ideal. We want a fast opening reserve. We don't need to throw anybody under the bus here, but we should do our research.
Right. Yeah.
And
in a nutshell, I wouldn't say they cheat, because the rules they follow the rules and they follow the market. And we want light reserves. The test is that they have to withstand the force. Yeah. And it's something just to consider for pilots, because in skydiving they pack fast or slow depending how long they're gonna free fall. They choose to do so. So what
they're doing.
I choose to, as a pilot myself, I want it as fast as possible, because the likelihood that I'm gonna lose my lines or carabiners is very slim. I look after my gear, and so. It's I should add that this is currently anecdotal evidence. I haven't done the research properly on it. I have limited data on this, of course. It's just my own civ courses and from acro community, what I've seen, what we, when we train acro. But I'm planning to gather a team to do proper research, because I think this is a really important thing, and I see the difference in civs, the opening. I have my footage from the courses, but it's not enough to have a proper research. It's not scientific. There should be research done, and I'm looking into finding time for it, resources and team to create a proper research to see what we can do about it to improve, if there's improvement needed, because I might be wrong.
But it's a good thing to be thinking about. I have one for you, and this is part of the question, but this has actually happened to me. And so you may have heard the story, but before the 21 race, I think it was the 21 race, I mean, literally 2.5 weeks before, I was doing a vol biv here, and I was quite heavy. I believe I was on my peak 4, and I had O2, and I had camping gear and the whole thing, and I was basically just training for a few days. And the last planned day of it, took off, broke a brake line in the taking off. It was kind of a rocky, not a great launch. And I didn't have a lot of time to make it work. My plan was to fly away from this little spine. It was quite treed in front of me, and there was a little treed canyon off to my left. And if I didn't get a climb right away, it felt like I would, but if I didn't, I'd fly across this little canyon, top land, wait for it to turn on more, kind of an X-Alps-y move. And didn't get the climb, started flying across the little canyon, less than 100 meters, maybe just slightly over 100 meters. When I looked at the track log, I was very, very low and got hit with some very weird air that I wasn't seeing. I didn't have access to weather. I was quite deep. There's no cell service or everything, and there was some pretty latent northwest wind. So I was down in the lee, didn't notice that on the launch. I was kind of hidden from all that. So anyway, something hit me, lost the wing, quite violently and instantly went into an auto rotation. And I did not have the time to, I'd done enough SIV that this is a reserve throw. It was instant. But as I went for it, actually lost the wing, went for the reserve, and it was a front mount. I was in, X-Alps gear. As I reached for it, went into an auto rotation, probably in the reach, right? And it kind of lost what little control I had. And my SIV brain instantly went, you got to solve this auto rotation first, because you've only got the one reserve. If you throw it and it goes into the wing, you're going to hit the deck and die. This all happened obviously very, very, very fast. I was really low. So instead of pulling, sorted the auto rotation and then threw, because when I sorted it, my wing was still a mess, but I stopped the auto rotation, through, and it was, I was looking at, oh my God, this is, I'm going to break my back for sure. It literally popped and I hit the ground. So this was all really quick. But my very long question to you is, this is something we learn in SIV all the time, that normally this is how you throw. Reach down, huck it back. Except in an auto rotation situation, you really want to be mindful of throwing it at your feet, right? You want to throw it down, get it away from the lines. In reality, what should we be more worried about? What should we do? Should we just throw? Don't worry about the auto rotation. If we have the time, sort the auto rotation, then throw if it's still a mess. What are you seeing in your SIV courses? What are you seeing in real time?
The correct answer is what you did. Stop the auto rotation, throw them. Because the auto rotation will take the rescue 9 times out of 10. Okay. Roughly. Yeah, slow opening, because it's...
Really?
It floats before it opens, because auto rotation, you don't have energy. You're not really, like in a spiral, you throw any packing and it will just pop because you have a lot of force coming to it. Auto rotation, but it's, when it comes to this, it's good and well sitting here in front of a screen and chatting. It's a whole nother ball game and you were at your story, you were already a very high level pilot to have that awareness, to have the controls, like, now I need to fix this before I do that. Most people, that you're in a panic state, and the mind is not the same as we're sitting here and talking about it. So it's really tricky to say, fix it. At the same time, people might sieve themselves to the ground, is the expression, right? The other extreme. So it's what I say, if in doubt, throw it.
Yeah.
It's a simpler thing. It doesn't matter if you're 3,000 meters above or 100. If in doubt, throw it. Because I'm considering the mental state of the person. Because it's not you and me chatting about, like, you and I, there's experience, and we can, our mind is a lot calmer than a couple 100-hour pilot going through the same thing. It's not the same person we're considering. So any throwing down, throwing left or right or up or all that, you need to be aware where the down is. And that's not... So what I say is throw as hard, as strong as you can, like your life depends on it. All the directional bit, if you can, you want to throw it away from the wing, away from the lines, wherever that is. Because if you have the awareness...
That's a better way to think about that. So not necessarily at your feet. Because in auto rotation, you can go...
Depends where your feet are.
Away from the wing.
Yeah, away from...
Yeah,
and
of course.
In auto rotation, it's rotating to one side. So you want to ideally throw it right behind the wing. So the wing takes the most time to do a 360. But it's a big ask for somebody that doesn't have regular training or thrown a bunch of reserves or been in those situations. This is where brings us back to the earlier topic about sieves. You should train it yourself. You shouldn't rely on sieves, but you do as many as you need till to a point so you don't need them anymore. It's really bad for sieve instructors and myself who teaches sieves, but really for me that's the goal. I don't want you to come to my courses for the next decade, for sieve courses specifically. I want you not need me anymore. That's the goal, because that's how I make the sport safer.
But let's be honest. How many people get to that level? you're talking a tiny fraction are
Yes.
really going to do over and over again what you're talking about. It's just that's a special pilot.
Yeah, but it's
That's not.
I mean, if you can't do
it
that,
is the goal.
yeah, that is the goal. And if you don't fly enough, then it's all about adjusting to where you fly, what conditions, and then a sieve. Don't get me wrong, sieve is still very valuable. It's just
Yes.
it shouldn't be thought of as I did a sieve, I'm good. Then I'm off to my merry way. Yeah, it's just the beginning of a new adventure. That's more my point.
Something that has got. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this just briefly, because now we are against the clock. But there are two things that do get people. First, reserves work. I've almost never seen something very bad come out of a reserve situation. But two things that can get people to an extent: downplaning, and then with regalos going downwind. These are a couple things. My experience is exactly what you've had. The one time I threw a regalo low, I didn't get even close to being able to. I didn't even have my main in my lap. I was still dealing with my main when I hit the ground. So, it wasn't, there was no chance to get to the controls that this takes time. So I do exactly what you said. I've got one hand is I've got plenty of height. The other hand is I'm low. My low is my square, my high is my regalo. But let's be honest, that's not always going to happen in combat. It's not always so clean like that. But what's the first thing you're thinking about when you throw? You've had 13, you said. What have you learned from those 13? What are the most important kind of sequence things? Again, if you've got time. If you're low, you don't have any time. You just hope for the best. But
you throwing a reserve is beginning of an adventure, not the end of your all problems. So when you throw, you follow it. You do not let it out of your eyes, and you be ready to pull on the lines. Because if it opens and pops, great. If it wants to float, you yank on that thing again, like your life depends on it, and as strong, as hard, as vicious as you can to get that thing open before it gets in your lines. Because if you have one, you don't have a second option. You have to get it open. And once no matter what the packing is, as long as it's stretched out and it's still not opening, you yank on that thing as fast as you can. You'll be full of adrenaline. You'll have power. No worries about that. But don't just throw it and forget about it. You want to follow it. That's first and most important, really. The 12 out of 13 was in acro, so that's you prepared for it. In cross country, I've had one in a sort of where you're chilled, relaxed, doing well. I had a 9 meter a second thermal. I wasn't quite relaxed. They woke me up. But altitude is the number one thing, but that's also when I fly distance. My biggest number on the instrument is AGL. I want to know exactly how high I am above what's under me, so I know what time I got. For me, AGL is the most important thing in paragliding. That translates in seconds that or minutes, depending how high I am. And the moment I'm under 400 meters AGL, what is that, 1,200 feet-ish, I'm very cautious of my altitude. What if I lose the wing now? So this doesn't really...
Just constantly asking yourself that.
I'm very aware once I'm too close to the terrain, how much time I got. And then I do that nonstop. Doesn't matter if it's calm air or it's just a habit I've trained over the years, especially after. And the throw I was very aware where I was, because that habit was before the rescue throw in cross country that I did, and it's saved because it's in acro. Also, what I learned is that you're messing with the wing. To avoid sieving yourself in the ground, you have a mess of your wing and you're playing with it. You're trying to fix because your box you start at 1,000 meters above the ground, and you constantly have a look, playing with it. Look, altitude before you throw it. So that habit also comes from macro, that you constantly check your height. Because you can even have nice hillies and whatever, and you're just burning altitude without realizing that you're too close to exit clean. So altitude is something I check all the time. And for the rescue throw, I mean, I've had really bad ones where I just dropped them. I've had the full power throws. I prefer full force, and follow it, yank on it, and even if it, especially if it goes in your line, yank as much as you can till it opens or you hit the ground, whichever comes first. Don't stop, because there's no other option. You have to keep going for that. For the down plane, that's a bit harder, depending. We had recently an event that a pilot threw a reserve, and visually on the video it looks like 40 twists on the wing, like the lines. So there's no.
It was a rope.
Sort of, yeah, just a big rope. But I didn't see the incident, so I'm speculating. It's the sooner the better. So once your rescue is open, your next first thing to do is collect the wing. And no matter how big or strong you are or not, or the wing, the system between reserve and paraglider is pulsating. It's never static. Air is moving, the wing is flapping, the rescue is moving in there. One or the other is taking power. You need to pay attention which one is which. Once you feel your reserve taking the load, that's when you pull in the wing as much as you can. The moment the wing wants to load, you lock your hands. Ideally, elbows near your body, friction. So the shoulder, elbow, 90 degrees. Lock it as close to your body as you can. Physically, it's easier for a human to lock at the 90 degree, close to body, than stretched out. So we're stronger, closer to our core. Lock it. Don't let the wing pull your hands out as much as you can. Once the rescue takes it again, pull in more and repeat the process till you get the whole wing. In this case, the reason I mentioned the rope is because it's one long thing, so you can't just grab asymmetric. And asymmetric is easier. If you grab one riser, you kind of deflate and you give a place for air to move out. So if you pull one side brake, you'll spin it or heli it or whatever, but it's easier to spin a wing than a stall a wing, if that makes sense. Because the air mass has somewhere to go. So you're not just symmetrically pushing it out, you're asymmetrically moving it on the other side. And so, yeah, one side riser or the C's or B's or whatever you have on your wing, brakes work, but that's a lot of wrap. And brakes work to a point because you can reach a point where the brake line splits up, and might not be enough depending on the configuration. I recommend risers or the lines itself, if you can. It's all of this is if you can. There's a lot of grab about the risers, this and that. Like sometimes you can't. The twist might be a meter above your head and you just can't reach it. It depends. But yeah, so to summarize, throw, keep your eyes on it. If it doesn't open, help it open and keep helping it open till you run out of time or it opens. Once it's open, your first priority is collect your wing. And I would even say if you managed and you got the wing in your lap, just about, let's say 5-3 meters above impact, release it. It gives a bit more drag and it won't have enough time to downplane. And it just...
Downplane.
The altitude is very... That's complete guess. I've done it a few times and it seemed to help. Again, this is my own personal experience. There's no research on this. But logically thinking, the more mess you have, the more drag you have, and you need some time for it to take effect. So I'm estimating about 3 to 5 meters is somewhere there. The bigger the mess above your head, the more drag. That's how my simple mind figures that out. Yeah, I think that's.
What's your thoughts? Then we'll wrap this up. But what are your thoughts on throwing both reserves? This is something I've seen in competition quite a bit. Is because we all fly with 2 reserves now in comps. We've all got these big heavy harnesses, and we've got 2. And I've seen that happen a lot. And I you know what? I've never actually asked the pilot why they did it, but it's usually one of these from my most of the time I'm just seeing them come down under 2 reserves. I haven't seen what caused it or why, but I'm assuming they throw one, don't like it, it's in the lines, boom, just throw another one. But I've never seen a bad outcome from 2. The only thing I would think would be is that if you're on the ground and it's really windy, that you've got 2 things that you're dealing with, trying to cut away or disable or something. I could see that being bad, but is there a bad side to it?
I've actually never thought much about it. I mean, one of my first reserve throws in Organia, I threw one and I had a massive pendulum. And the first thing the Rogala brothers said, "Why didn't you throw the second?" I was like, well, I was concerned about downplane. That was my first reaction, and I landed with that one reserve. I never did throw the second. I need to have a look. I haven't looked into. I assume that the downplane is not as big of an issue because the shape of and the way
I don't think it is
it's just a
with
different
reserves.
shape.
No, I don't think
where
it
the wing
is.
has. I mean, I've thrown 2 when the first malfunctioned. Then I've never thrown 2 at the same time, personally. But I think from the shape of it, it's a good one. I think I need to look into it, and I'm sure there's some videos because this is an interesting one to look into. Because I think because of the shape of them, they're not gonna go downplane just like completely.
I don't think they can travel fast enough.
I think
I don't think they're a performant enough wing.
Yeah,
because
once it goes to a certain angle, the airflow will start pushing it back. So I don't think it's that big. Like wing can go.
Yeah.
We have those beautiful videos where the wings fly horizontally or vertically. Legs locked together and the pilots are opposite directions. So the wing can do that, but reserve can't do that. It wants to stabilize as much as possible, sort of. So I don't. Top of my head, I don't think it's besides what you said, that on the ground that's going to be a handful if there's some wind, but in trees I think that's even softer. You have more mesh above you to catch you.
And more time maybe to disable your main wing. I don't see too many drawbacks.
I mean, at top of my head I can't, but that doesn't mean there isn't. At top of my head I can't figure out. But definitely something to look into. That's a new one for me. So I'll think about it.
I mean, you got to pack 2 wings.
That's all right.
Pack 2 reserves.
I'll take that over a broken ankle.
That's not a big deal. That's just good practice. Yeah. I guess the other thing we want to just finish on here, for those of you listening who haven't thrown your reserve, that the test is, like you said, I think it's 5.5 meters. That's really fast. And so, this whole thing of saving weight, this is not where you want to save weight in your kit. You want to come down slow, and you would be surprised. I mean, think about all the places that you fly where you look down and you go, what would happen if I threw my reserve here? I mean, around here where I fly in the Rockies, I do not want to throw my reserve. I don't want to land in this stuff at all. But if I did throw my reserve, the last thing I want to be doing is coming down at 5.5 meters a second. It would be really painful. And so, just have that in mind, that this is not.
I mean, the 5.5
weight.
The 5.5 will save your life, but you will break your bones probably.
Yes,
depending where you land, of course. But Rockies, yeah.
Depending on where you land, how you land, if you do a good PLF, all those kind of things. But all this stuff. Karlis, you're a treasure, man. I really appreciate that you've given us all your time on these really good topics. And those of you listening, thanks for the questions. I appreciate it. But I appreciate you. I hope your shoulder gets better soon here and we get you back in the air. But thanks, man.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind-the-scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So For example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.